Hi guys, I want to introduce you to our next text. This is The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. This presentation will just introduce you to the book and give you some questions to think about as we start our study. The first thing we're going to talk about is the author. Her name is Sandra Cisneros. You can see on the screen there's some pictures of her. One from when she was a little bit younger and the other two from as she's gotten a little bit older. The book that we're reading is actually the very first book she ever published. But what I want you to consider is, what do these pictures suggest about our author? What might we expect from reading her work by looking at the pictures? And consider, how might this book be different from past books we've read? The next thing I want to cover and introduce to you is this idea of style. Style is essentially all of the different tips and tricks and techniques the author uses in order to write. But our book specifically, you will notice, is very different than other books we've read this year. If you scroll through the book or flip through its pages, you'll notice a couple of things. First and foremost, the book is short. It's like 120 pages, so relatively short, especially for a novel. And the second thing you're going to notice is it's written in a series of vignettes. A vignette, that is this funny sounding word. Let me find the right pen. This is pronounced vignette. A vignette is a snapshot of life. Vignettes also are relatively short. If you flip through the pages or scroll through it, you will notice that some of them are only a paragraph or a couple of paragraphs long. Most of them are less than a page. There are a couple that are a little bit longer, but for the most part, the book is short and the different sections of the book are also short. So as far as getting through your reading assignments, it shouldn't be a problem. Once you start reading, you will also notice a couple of things. First, our author, Sandra Cisneros, she breaks pretty much all of the grammar rules, almost all of the time. She does it on purpose. It's incredibly intentional. It's a very purposeful style choice. The book is written from the perspective of the main character. It's in first person. And the main character is a young girl who is learning things and growing and figuring things out about herself and about life and the way things work. And the style that Cisneros writes in is very similar to what we would expect from someone of this young girl's age and situation. And so it's also often almost like, well, you guys know, you don't think in full sentences most of the time, right? You think in little segments or snapshots or different phrases. That's almost how the book is written, in these kind of just little snapshots or phrases. And so you'll see, as you start reading, Cisneros uses fragments. I lost my stylus, hold on. She uses fragments. She uses run-on sentences. She'll put punctuation in places that you think it doesn't really belong, or she'll not put it in places that you do think it belongs. And so you'll also notice that it sometimes feels like she either over-explains something or she doesn't quite finish a thought. All of that is intentional, and it adds to how we find meaning in what she writes. But it can be difficult to read at times. However, just like anything, you will get used to it with practice. So the more you read it, the more sense it will make, and the more accustomed you'll become to the style that she uses. The other thing that is worth noting is Cisneros uses lots of figurative language. So let's talk about what figurative language is. Here we go, figurative language. Now you guys are familiar with a lot of these. These are all of the different kinds of figurative language that you will find in the book. And there's probably some that I don't include on this slide that are also there. But these are the big ones that I want you to pay the most attention to. So let's start over here with this idea of a metaphor. You guys know what metaphors are. Metaphors are comparisons between two unlike things. You'll also notice next to all of the different colored boxes of figurative language examples, I put quotes. All of these quotes are from the book. They're actually even from just the first couple of vignettes. I think maybe 3 or 4 vignettes within the book. And so you'll notice she uses figurative language a lot. So the metaphor that I pulled is, I am like a balloon, or I am a balloon tied to an anchor. So if you even picture that, it would be something that wants to fly, but something is holding it back or weighing it down. Okay. A simile over here, comparison between two unlike things using like or as. So essentially the same thing as a metaphor, but it specifically uses like or as to emphasize the comparison. And so the example I bring up is, my papa's hair is like a broom, all up in the air. So if you think about a broom, how all of those different fibers kind of stick straight up. Again, she's using it as a description of a characteristic of her father's appearance. The next one is personification. Personification is giving a thing, idea, or an animal human attributes. So essentially something that isn't human being given or explained in human ideas. So the example that I pulled out is, windows so small you'd think they were holding their breath. Now, obviously windows can't hold their breath. That would be a human attribute. But it kind of gives you this idea of windows that seem too small for the face of the building, or seem a little bit disproportionate to everything else around them. Alliteration. Alliteration is something you guys are all familiar with, even if you don't know it. Alliteration is the repetition of the beginning sound of an adjacent or closely connected words. So this is your Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. That's alliteration. Or Sally sold let's see, what is it? Sally sold seashells by the seashore. All of that, those are examples of alliteration. The example I pulled from the book is bread before you bake it. This idea of this repetitive first consonant sound. Hyperbole. You guys are also familiar with hyperbole, even if you don't know it. But hyperbole is an intentional exaggeration used for emphasis. So anytime you say you're starving, or the best thing that ever happened in the whole world, those kinds of things are hyperbole. The example I use is, they lived in their universe and we in ours. Now she's using that to talk about the difference between boys and girls. Obviously you don't both live in different universes, but she feels like sometimes the differences between the two genders are significant enough and pronounced enough that it feels like you're in a whole different universe. And then the last one is imagery. We've talked about imagery before, but imagery is using sense descriptions to explain someone or something. And by sense descriptions, that's your touch, taste, feel, hear, and smell, okay, and see. So just your different senses, using those senses to explain or describe something. So the example I use is, sweet to put your nose into when she was holding you. So she's explaining what something smells like. Specifically, she's talking about her mother's hair. So all of these, again, are examples of our figurative language, which is language that goes beyond the literal definition of words to express meaning in more imaginative and impactful ways. The best, coolest, most wonderful thing about figurative language is it takes something and it gives it a deeper meaning or a deeper sense. And so the reader can connect to what the author is saying on lots of different levels, not just the literal, dictionary definition of the words that are being used, but almost like a more emotional or almost like this depth that figurative language gives to writing, both for the author to write it and also for the reader to experience it. Okay, so we're reading a book, but obviously we're not in class for me to pass books out to you. And so let me explain how you're actually going to access the book. So there's a couple different ways, and you are welcome to use one or the other, or you can use a combination of both. It's possible that you might have a separate copy at home. It is a fairly well-known book. And so if you have parents that are into literature and into reading, it's possible they have a copy of this book at home. However, if not, there is an online PDF. It's available at this link. I'm also going to put both of these resources in an announcement on Canvas that you will have access to all the time. Okay. So, but this online PDF will take you to an electronic version. You are certainly welcome to just read it on the screen, or for those of you who prefer hard copy books like myself, you are welcome to print it out. Okay. There's also a couple different versions of an audiobook on YouTube. So it's essentially just a language arts teacher who's reading the book out loud in a video on YouTube. The one that's linked here, this is going to sound weird, but the one that's linked here is, it's a language arts teacher who's reading the book. It is a guy, and so that's a little bit odd because the book is written from the perspective of a young girl, and so that might throw you off a little bit. However, to make up for it, the guy does have kind of a cool accent that you can listen to. It's kind of soothing. Also, for the audiobook part, if you look at the first comment under the video, so you guys know how you can comment on the different videos you see on YouTube. So the first comment, the person who's actually reading the book and who posted the video actually comments. And he comments with all of the different time places where you can find all of the various vignettes. Okay, so if I say I need you to read the first 4 vignettes, and you've read the first one on the online PDF, but you need to do the other 3, if you look at that first full comment, you won't have to listen to the first one. You can just fast forward the movie or the video to where the second one starts. Okay, so it kind of gives you the placeholders in the time of the video for where you can find all of the different vignettes. Okay. Now, to finish up, let's talk about your assignments. Now, these are the assignments for this week, meaning April 13th through April 17th, Monday through Friday. So everything's going to be available as of Monday morning. First thing, it gets published in Canvas. It's open. You guys can get to it. All of the specific work is due by Friday, the 17th. I highly, highly, highly recommend that you go through stuff in order and that you don't try to do the assignments without first listening to the discussion and going through these video lectures, okay? It just makes a whole lot more sense, and it will save me a whole lot of questions that you probably will email me if you just watch the video. Because most of the time what I'll say is go back to the video, because that's where all the stuff is covered. All right, so let's talk assignments. So House on Mango Street, introduction, that's what this is. So check, check, you've already listened to it, you've already gone through it, so you're done with the first one. Check. The second one is a web quest. It kind of walks you through a little bit more in-depth information about our author, as well as the author's connection with the novel. Okay, that is on Canvas. You can find it there. After you complete the web quest, you will go to the style presentation. The style presentation has a Canvas discussion that you will complete after you watch the style presentation. After that, you will go to the cultural integration presentation, which also has a Canvas discussion that goes in conjunction with that. And then finally, you're going to read the first 4 vignettes. Okay, we've got The House on Mango Street. The first vignette is the title vignette of the book. Hares is the second one. Boys and Girls is the third one. Oh, just kidding. You're only going to read the first 3. So read the first 3. If you have a hard copy of the book, the first 3 vignettes is like 4 pages, if even that. They're not very long. And then finally, you are going to complete the figurative language family activity. All of this is on Canvas. It should walk you through everything with your normal Canvas calendar assignment stuff. But if you have any questions, certainly let me know. And then finally, I am sorry to report, but we are back to doing iReady. However, only 30 minutes a week. Okay, so we've reduced it from 45 down to 30. So you do need to do 30 minutes of iReady sometime throughout the week. So that will get you done, and you should be good to get started. I'm excited to study this book with you. It's really great. There's so many great connections and correlations that you guys can make to your own lives. Kids really relate to it, and it's just a really fun book to teach. It'll be interesting to see how it goes digitally through our distance learning, but we're going to do our best. Okay, as always, let me know if you guys have any questions, and I will see you next time.